What she knows is the smoke curling from her hood, thin and theatrical, exactly where she poured the antifreeze 20 minutes ago. She knows the dust on her boots is real, even if the breakdown isn't. She knows the address on the folder in her glove box. Sterling Ranch for 1,200 acres, one owner refusing to sell. What she doesn't expect is the sign. It's bolted crooked to the gatepost, half rusted, the kind of sign nobody reads twice, except Eden reads it 3 times. No trespassing. And under it, stenciled in newer paint, sloppier hand, mineral rights pending. Pending. Not settled. Not Sterling's, not yet. She's still staring at it, phone half raised to photograph it, when the dust on the road behind her thickens into something with an engine. Not a ranch truck. A horse. Black, moving too fast for a man who isn't in a hurry to scare off a stranger. She drops the phone in her jacket. By the time he reins in 10 feet from her busted hood, she's just a woman in trouble, hands streaked with fake grease, nothing in her face but irritation at the heat. He doesn't dismount right away. Just looks at her car, at the sign she was photographing at her. Help you. Wyatt Sterling's voice doesn't match the file photos. Rougher. Tired in a way money doesn't usually sound. Car died. The gate has been locked for 6 years. Eden Hart doesn't know that yet. She wipes her hands on her jeans, doesn't quite meet his eyes. Wasn't trying to read your sign. Everybody reads that sign. He swings down, slow, watching her like he already doesn't believe the car. Questions why. Eden smiles the smile she's practiced in motel mirrors for 3 weeks. Bad luck, I guess. Wyatt doesn't smile back. But he doesn't tell her to walk either. Bad luck, he repeats, like he's filing it away to use against her later. Get in the truck. I'll send somebody for the car. She climbs in. Neither of them mentions the sign again. But she knows he saw her looking at it. And he knows she didn't explain why. The truck ride to the house takes 11 minutes. Wyatt spends 9 of them in silence, and Eden spends all 11 deciding she likes that about him, which is a complication. She's not here to like him. She's here to find out who's been quietly buying mineral rights out from under a man who doesn't seem to know it's happening. The lawyer is waiting on the porch when they pull in. Older man, sweating through a suit too heavy for June, papers fanned out on a table that's seen better decades. Wyatt doesn't introduce Eden. He doesn't have to. The lawyer's already talking before the truck stops rolling. 91 days, Wyatt. He says it like he's said it before, more than once, and it hasn't worked yet. Your grandfather's clause doesn't bend for grief, for pride, or for whatever this is. A glance at Eden, dismissive, already cataloging her as ranch help. Married by your 35th birthday, or the ranch reverts to Holt. Wyatt doesn't look at the lawyer. He looks at the horizon, where the fence line meets a row of survey stakes that weren't there last season. Holt's already got buyers lined up. You know that. I know what I'm told. The lawyer gathers his papers like the conversation is costing him by the minute. 91 days. Eden files it. A deadline, a cousin, a clause built by a dead man who clearly didn't trust his grandson to keep what he was given. She doesn't know yet that she's about to become tangled in all 3. She gets the job 2 days later, and not easily. The foreman, Reed Calloway, lean and sun-cracked, 20 years on this land, looks at her application like it's an insult aimed personally at him. We don't need another hand. Reed doesn't look up from the fence post he's resetting. Especially not one who shows up the same week his sign gets photographed. I wasn't photographing the sign. Didn't say you were. Reed finally looks at her, and there's nothing friendly in it. Said you showed up the same week. It's Wyatt who overrules him, 10 minutes later, with a shrug that costs him nothing and Reed everything. Put her on the east fence with Calloway. If she can't keep up, she's gone by Friday. Reed doesn't say a word, but the look he gives Wyatt's back lasts a beat too long to be nothing. She keeps up. By the 2nd week, keeping up has turned into something neither of them planned for. Wyatt finds reasons to ride the east fence himself. Checking work that doesn't need checking, standing closer than the job requires while he does it. Eden finds herself memorizing the rhythm of his silences instead of the layout of his property records. It's a Tuesday, hauling wire in heat that makes the air look wet, when he catches her wrist to stop her dragging a line across a fresh cut on her palm. His thumb finds the cut before his eyes do. For 3 full seconds, neither of them moves. You should have said something. His voice has dropped into the register he doesn't use around the crew. It's a scratch. It's still bleeding. He doesn't let go of her wrist. You're not as tough as you're trying to look, Eden Hart. And you're not as unmarried as your lawyer needs you to be. The words are out before she's decided to risk them. Something shifts in his face, not anger. Recognition. Like she's the first person in 91 days to say the deadline out loud without flinching from it. He lets go of her wrist. Doesn't answer. But he doesn't ride off either. That night, Reed finds Holt's number already saved in his phone, under a name that isn't Holt's. He doesn't call it. Not yet. Instead, he sits on the bunkhouse porch, turning his beer in slow circles, and says to nobody, to the dark, to 20 years of being the man who ran this ranch while a Sterling's name sat on the deed. Should have been mine by now. Foreman Track was supposed to mean something. He looks toward the main house, where one window is still lit. He brings in a stranger before he brings in a partner. 2 days after the sign goes up. A long pull from the bottle. That's not luck. That's somebody's plan. Questions whether it's hers, or somebody who pays better than Wyatt does. He doesn't make the call, but his thumb hovers over it long enough that the audience knows he will. The engagement doesn't come from romance. It comes from a hailstorm. 40 acres of feed corn, flattened in 40 minutes, and Wyatt is standing in the wreckage at dawn doing math that doesn't work no matter which direction he runs it. Eden finds him there before the rest of the crew does. She doesn't offer empty words about recovery timelines or insurance adjusters. She just stands beside him and looks at what the storm took, and something about that, the not talking, the just standing, cracks something open in him he hasn't let near air in 2 years. 63 days, he says, to the ruined field more than to her. 63 days to either marry someone or hand my grandfather's land to a man who's already got buyers lined up. I know. She says it before she can stop herself, too certain, too fast. He turns, studies her. Yeah, he says slowly. I think you do. She braces for the question that should follow. It doesn't. Instead, he says the thing that's been building under both their silences for 2 weeks and probably can't be unsaid now. Marry me. Eden laughs, disbelief, not refusal. You don't know me. I know you didn't run when Reed tried to scare you off. I know you read that gate sign 3 times before you decided what your face should be doing. His jaw sets. I'm not asking because I'm in love with you. I'm asking because I'm out of time and you're the only person on this ranch I trust not to want something that isn't already on the table. It's the worst possible moment for her conscience to arrive. She has a reason for being here that isn't on her application, and saying yes means burying it deeper than she's buried anything. She says yes anyway. Reed makes his move 4 days before the courthouse appointment. He shows up at dinner, which he never does, and he brings a woman with him. Mara Voss, mid-30s, put together in a way that reads like money learning to look casual, with a smile she deploys at Wyatt specifically and nowhere else. She's a land attorney from Dallas, Reed says. Old friend. Passing through. She is not passing through. Eden clocks it in the first 8 minutes. The way Mara already knows the ranch layout without being shown, the way she asks about the survey stakes with the fluency of someone who's read the filings, the casual mention of Briarcliff. Those people are everywhere these days, aren't they? Dropped like punctuation, not surprise. Wyatt is polite. He's also watching Eden watch Mara, and by dessert he makes an excuse to refill Eden's water glass himself, which is the kind of thing a man does when he's already made a decision and wants the other person to know it. Reed sees that too. His jaw tightens. Mara leaves early, and later, through the bunkhouse wall, Eden hears Reed's voice. She's not who she says she is. Give it another week and you'll know it. She almost tells Wyatt everything that night. She doesn't because she checks her files first, the way she always does when her nerve runs ahead of her evidence. And that's when she finds it. The violation she's been building for 3 months. A chain of land transfers, flagged survey deviations, a contractor payment that routes back to a Briarcliff subsidiary and names the Sterling Ranch as a target acquisition. She's pulled it from 4 separate county records. She's cross-referenced it twice. It's the backbone of everything she came here to expose. It's also wrong. Not incomplete. Wrong. The contractor payment file, the one that links Briarcliff directly to the survey tampering, has a timestamp that predates the company's incorporation by 11 months. She never checked the incorporation date because the rest of the document looked clean. She checked it now because for the first time since she arrived, she's scared enough to check everything. Someone built that file knowing exactly what she was looking for. They gave her the shape of the conspiracy without the substance. Just enough to feel like proof, not enough to survive a courthouse. Briarcliff didn't fabricate the land grab. They fabricated her case against the land grab. She sits with that for a long time, in the dark, while the ranch sleeps around her. She came here for a story. Someone knew she was coming, knew what she needed to find, and gave her a clean version of it, packaged to explode in her hands the moment she tried to use it publicly. Which means two things she doesn't want to be true at once. The real violation still exists. She just has nothing left to prove it. And whoever built the fake file knew her name before she ever reached that gate. Wyatt finds the photographs because Reed leaves them. Not drops them, not misplaces them. Leaves them on the corner of the barn office desk where Wyatt will find them alone, and Reed will have had enough time to be somewhere else. That's how Wyatt knows, before he even looks at what's in them, that he's not supposed to have a choice about what comes next. Someone made sure of it. He looks anyway. Eden's ID first. The name almost matching, not quite. The folder beneath it, Briarcliff Resources, her father's foreclosure clipped to the front, and his own ranch's name appearing on page 4 flagged, annotated in a hand he doesn't recognize. Sterling, target deadline dependent. He sets the photographs down, picks them back up, reads the same page 3 times because he's hoping the words will change, which they don't. Then he goes to find Reed. His brother is at the south fence, working a post that doesn't need working, which means he's been waiting. Who gave you these? Wyatt asks and holds up the photographs. Reed doesn't look surprised. Doesn't look guilty either, which is worse. Found them in her bunkhouse bag. You went through her bag. I was looking for. You went through her bag, Reed. Wyatt's voice is level in the way it gets when the alternative is something he won't be able to walk back. And then you left what you found on my desk instead of bringing it to me directly. Why? Reed meets his eyes then, and there's something in them Wyatt has been seeing for months and refusing to name. Because I needed you to find it without me standing there coaching your reaction. That's not an answer. That is the answer. You'd have defended her if I'd handed it to you face to face. You know I'm right. He's not wrong about that, and Wyatt knows it, and that's the thing that makes him stand still instead of swinging. Not self-control, just the sick knowledge that his brother has calculated him correctly. You've been talking to Holt, Wyatt says. Not a question. I've been protecting this ranch. From a ranch hand you don't like. From a woman who showed up at your gate with a file on your land and a fake breakdown, and you married her in 60 days. Reed throws the post driver down, and it's the first real emotion Wyatt's seen from him in months. But it's not guilt, it's grievance, old and packed tight. She wasn't here for you. She was here for the story. And you handed her everything because you were lonely and the clock was running, and she knew exactly how to stand in a ruined cornfield and look like the right answer. Wyatt says nothing for a long time. Long enough that the cattle in the far paddock move, and the light shifts, and Reed almost says something else. I hear you, Wyatt finally says. I'm not saying you're wrong about what's in that folder. He picks the photographs up, folds them once, puts them in his chest pocket. I'm saying you went through my wife's personal property without asking me, and you've been in contact with Holt while this mineral rights case is still open, and you didn't tell me either of those things. And I need you to tell me why, the real reason, before I decide what to do about any of it. Reed looks away first. You wouldn't have listened. Try me. He doesn't. He picks up the post driver and goes back to work, and Wyatt watches him for one more second before he walks back to the house, because there is a version of this conversation he can come back from with his brother, and there is a version of this conversation he cannot, and he doesn't yet know which one just happened. He finds the contract by accident. He isn't looking for it. He's looking for the ranch's original survey baseline. In the filing cabinet Eden has been using as a second desk because he needs to cross-reference something in Briarcliff's public acquisition record before he confronts her. He's trying to build a fair picture. He's trying to be the kind of man who waits for the whole truth before he acts on part of it. The contract is in a manila folder between the survey maps and a 2-year-old irrigation report. Single page. Her real name at the top, the one that's slightly different from the application, and below it, a terms of commission agreement with a publication house in Austin. One long-form investigative piece on predatory mineral rights acquisition in rural Texas, with the Sterling Ranch named as the anchor case. Filed 8 days before she drove through his gate. He reads it twice. Sits down in the chair she's been using. In the office he let her use because he trusted her, and reads it again. Not because he doesn't understand it. Because he needs a minute to find the version of himself that can walk out of this room and say what needs to be said without it coming out as something he can't take back. He doesn't find that version. He walks out anyway. Eden drives to the title office at 6:47 in the morning, before the county opens, and sits in her car in the parking lot for 19 minutes. She has the fabricated file on the passenger seat. Underneath it, her real one, 3 months of rebuilt evidence, started over from Wyatt's own land records the night she found the planted documents. Cross-referenced this time against incorporation dates and contractor licensing records and one deposition transcript from a Briarcliff case in a neighboring county that nobody had connected to this one yet. It's not as clean as what she originally thought she had. It's better. It's the kind of evidence that survives a courthouse because it was built by someone who already learned what fabricated evidence looks like from the inside. She also has her commission contract. The one with her real name at the top and the Sterling Ranch named as the anchor case and a publication date that's now 8 weeks out. She thinks about her father, which she tries not to do before 9 a.m. because it makes the rest of the day harder. She thinks about the way he used to say the ranch would outlast everything. The drought years, the bad markets, the neighbors who sold and the neighbors who didn't, the slow particular grief of watching something your hands built get valued by people who never touched it. She thinks about the morning the foreclosure notice came and the way he read it standing up, at the kitchen counter, like sitting down would make it more true. She never told Wyatt that part. She told him about the company. She didn't tell him about the counter. She gets out of the car. The county clerk's name is Patrice, and she has been working this office for 22 years, and she has seen people come through that door with everything from birth certificates to eviction orders, and she can tell in about 4 seconds which kind of morning someone is having. Eden Hart is having the kind of morning where someone has already decided something and just needs a witness to make it real. She sets both files on the counter. The fabricated one first, flagged and annotated, with a cover letter explaining the chain of falsification and the specific Briarcliff entity she traces it to. Then the real one, her rebuilt case, organized by date, with the neighboring county deposition attached and the contractor licensing discrepancy highlighted in the third exhibit. I need this entered into the county fraud record, Eden says. Both files. The first one as evidence of document manipulation, the second as the corrected chain of title violations. She pauses. The second one supersedes anything I may have filed or represented previously. It stands on its own. It doesn't need me attached to it. Patrice looks at the files. Looks at Eden. Honey, are you surrendering source privilege on this? I'm surrendering everything on this. Eden's voice doesn't shake. She's practiced not letting it. The publication commission, the source protections, the journalist shield. All of it. She slides one more document across the counter. Not her contract, but a signed withdrawal of it, notarized that morning at the UPS store 2 blocks away because she didn't want to give herself time to think better of it. If Briarcliff wants to come after the person who filed this, they know where to find me. I'd rather that than have this case dismissed on privilege grounds when Wyatt Sterling tries to use it. Patrice accepts the documents, stamps them, and then, because she has worked this office for 22 years and has earned the right to one question. Does he know you're doing this? Eden picks up her empty folder and her car keys. He will. She doesn't mean it the way Patrice takes it. Not I'll tell him, but he'll find out, which is different and deliberate. She drives back to the ranch to get her things. Not because she's leaving for good. Because she needs to give Wyatt the choice of what comes next without her standing in the room, making it harder to make. Wyatt is still at the gate when his phone rings. He's been there since before dawn, one hand on the post, not thinking clearly enough to think in sentences. Just images, in the order they arrived. The photographs on his desk, Reed's face doing the math before Wyatt did. The contract in the manila folder with 8 days head start on a woman he married in 60. The number is county. He answers because ranchers always answer county numbers. It's Patrice. He's never spoken to her before. She introduces herself and tells him she's calling as a courtesy, not a requirement, because a filing came in this morning that names his property, and he'll want to know before Briarcliff's legal team does, which, she estimates, gives him about 4 hours. She tells him what Eden filed. Both files. The withdrawal. The surrendered commission. His name, protected inside a case that no longer has a journalist attached to it, which means Briarcliff can't challenge it on privilege grounds, which means the land transfer freeze holds, which means he has time. Wyatt sits down on the running board of his truck, in the dirt, with the mineral rights pending sign behind him and the phone still in his hand. Did she say anything else? He asks. When she left, Patrice is quiet for a second. She said he'd find out. A pause. I think she meant you. He hangs up and sits there for a long moment, long enough for the cattle to stir in the far paddock and the morning to get properly started without him. Then he gets up and goes to find his wife. The story doesn't break in Texas. It breaks in Oklahoma. A courthouse reporter in Tulsa picks up the Sterling County fraud filing on a routine records sweep. The kind of thing she does every Thursday morning with coffee, scanning new entries for anything that cross-references cases she's already tracking. Eden's filing cross-references 3 of them: 2 Briarcliff land acquisitions in neighboring counties and 1 deposition transcript from a pipeline easement dispute that's been sitting in a Tulsa docket for 14 months without anyone connecting it to a Texas ranch's mineral rights battle. She connects it in about 40 minutes. By noon, it's a regional piece. By 4, it's national, because Briarcliff Resources, rebranded 18 months ago as Briar Energy, a name with better optics and the same board, has 17 active acquisition campaigns across 4 states, and the Sterling filing is the first one with documented fabrication evidence attached. Not allegations. Evidence. Stamped, entered, signed by the person who built the case and surrendered her own legal cover to file it clean. The story names the methodology. Plan a fabricated violation, let an investigator find it, wait for them to file it publicly, then discredit the entire case on document authenticity grounds. It's been used 4 times. The Sterling case is the first time someone found the fabrication before filing instead of after. The reporter calls it elegant, in the way that corporate fraud sometimes is. Eden reads the piece on her phone, sitting in a diner booth 2 towns over, and feels something that isn't quite vindication. Her father's ranch is in the 4th paragraph, named as an earlier iteration of the same methodology before Briarcliff had fully refined it. Seeing it in print doesn't fix anything, but it makes it real in a different way than it's been real in her head for 11 years, and she sits with that for a while before she orders anything. Holt's legal team files for an emergency injunction on the land transfer freeze by 5 p.m. and withdraws it by 9, because someone on that team has read the full filing and understood what surrendered source privilege means for their challenge strategy, which is that they don't have one. Holt calls Reed at 9:47. Reed doesn't answer. He already knows what Holt is calling about because he's been watching the same story break on the same screens as everyone else, and because he's a smart enough man to understand that Holt's emergency injunction withdrawal means Holt has decided the cleanest exit from this is to let Reed be the documented local operative and take the distance for himself. The county fraud investigator knocks on the bunkhouse door at 7 the next morning. Reed answers it like a man who's been awake all night and has decided somewhere around 3 a.m. that there's no version of this where pretending helps him. He cooperates fully, which is the only intelligent thing left to do, and which Wyatt will later learn and not feel anything uncomplicated about. The cooperation doesn't save Reed's stake. That's not how the grandfather's will was written. Wyatt's attorney pulls the co-beneficiary clause 2 days after the fraud filing becomes part of the public record, because the clause has a covenant attached that the grandfather added in the final revision and that neither brother ever read closely enough. Any co-beneficiary found to have acted in material opposition to the preservation of Sterling Ranch property or title shall be considered to have predeceased the testator for purposes of this instrument. It's old language. Formal, almost Victorian, the kind of thing a man writes when he's watched families destroy themselves over land and wants to leave no ambiguity about what he values more than blood. Reed doesn't lose his stake because Wyatt takes it. He loses it because their grandfather already decided, 20 years ago, that the ranch would outlast whatever the people who inherited it did to each other. The attorney explains this to both of them in the same room, which Wyatt insists on, because whatever Reed did, he was still the person who taught Wyatt to set a fence post and read a weather system and understand that land doesn't care what you feel about it, only what you do. Reed listens to the clause read aloud and doesn't argue. He looks at the table for a long time. Then he looks at Wyatt and says the truest thing he's said in months. I knew what I was doing. I just thought it would feel like more than this. Wyatt doesn't answer. There isn't an answer that's fair to what they both lost. Reed is gone by the end of the week. Not escorted. He packs his own truck early, before the crew is up, which is either courtesy or cowardice and probably both. He leaves the keys to the foreman's gate on the kitchen table without a note, which tells Wyatt exactly as much as a note would have. He finds her at the gate. Not because she planned it that way. She's been sitting on the hood of her car for 2 hours, engine off, going nowhere in particular, and the gate is just where the road ends when you don't know yet if you're leaving or being asked to stay. The sign is different. Somebody pulled the mineral rights pending panel down in the last 48 hours. County order, pending the fraud investigation. And what's left is just the original. Sterling Ranch. Black letters. No threat underneath them. Just a name that survived what was meant to take it. Wyatt pulls up in the truck, not the horse this time, and he gets out slowly, the way a man does when he's rehearsed something and then decided to say the unrehearsed version instead. He stands in front of her and holds out the evidence binder she left on the kitchen table. Not as a question, as a return. You left this. I know. She doesn't take it yet. I wasn't sure if you'd want it back in the house. I want what built it back in the house. He sets the binder on the hood beside her. The rest we figure out from there. She looks at the sign. At him. At the gate that was locked 6 years ago and is standing open right now for no reason except that someone forgot to close it after the county came through. I came here for a story, she says. I know. I stayed for a different one. He doesn't say anything. He just opens the passenger door, the way he did the first day, except this time neither of them is performing anything. She gets in. If you've ever walked away from something real because the timing was wrong, drop it in the comments. And if you want the next story before it hits the feed, subscribe and hit the bell. The next one starts with a funeral, a forged signature, and a woman who shouldn't be in the will.